Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at this 143 scale Ferrari 599 by IXO. And this is actually one of the few Ferraris in my 143 scale collection. I believe I've already reviewed the 512 BB, and that's because most of my Ferraris are in 118 and a couple in 124. In 143, I usually collect interesting and exotic cars that are either not available or prohibitively expensive in larger scales. And for me, the latter was the case with the red Pan American in 118 made by Hot Wheels Elite, which here in Europe you still can't get for less than $100. But again, here in Europe, you can find good deals on the blue one. So when I bought the blue Elite in 118, I was pretty happy with the purchase until I felt I needed to buy the red one as well to complete the set. And that's when I saw this 143 scale model for $10, and I immediately bought it. And despite being much smaller in size than the 118, it's still got plenty of detail, and that's what I'm going to show you in this review. And this is what the model looks like inside its classy red Ferrari packaging. I think this is a dealer edition because otherwise IXO wouldn't bother with this expensive looking packaging, so this definitely looks cool. You can see here on the side we even have slightly three-dimensional raised lettering saying Ferrari. And if we take a look at the back of this packaging, exact scale ornamental model for adult collector. And for some reason we've got the Hot Wheels brand here. I'm not sure why. But anyway, we then have the Ferrari official product sticker here. Alright, so let us get this cover out. When I first removed the car from its base, I was horrified to find tread marks on the base, as if the rubber from the tires had partially melted into it due to extreme heat. But then I checked the tires, and the tread pattern on them was intact. So I don't really know how this happened, but I saw this on close-ups of the product photos as well, and therefore I think that this issue affects all IXO 599 GTB Panamericans. But as long as the tires aren't damaged, I can live with these marks on the base, considering they aren't visible when the model is fixed to the base. Maybe a little introduction to the 599. GTB is Gran Turismo Berlinetta. This was basically Ferrari's front-engined Grand Tourer, which replaced the 550/575 Maranello in 2006, and it was replaced by the F12 Berlinetta in 2012. Now this car is, as I mentioned in my review on the 118 Blue Pan American, a special edition in the sense that it is one of two cars which took part in a Grand Tour across the Americas to prove their endurance as Grand Tourers. In 2006, just 1 year after the 15,000 Red Miles tour of China that was done by two 612 Scaglietis, Ferrari decided to up the ante with the Pan American 20,000. And that's miles, meaning more than 32,000 kilometers. And that's exactly what the Pan American 20,000 really was, an endurance rally of sorts. A PR stunt in which two 599 GTB Fioranos started this Grand Tour on the 24th of August 2006 in Belo Horizonte and spent 3 months driving through Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, the USA, and Canada, and then back to the US to end in New York City on the 17th of November. Even though they aren't by any means meant to be off-road vehicles, these cars went through a lot of difficult terrain. I mean, they went through salt flats. They crossed muddy rivers, jungles, the Grand Canyon, you name it. these 599 GTBs climb to altitudes of more than 4,000 meters in the Andes. And as you might know, a car's engine output decreases by about 10% every 1,000 meters. So this put the cars to a real test. The Pan American 20,000 took these two Ferrari 599 GTBs through 16 countries. And essentially what they would do was, they would keep changing the decal on the hood for a different national icon of every single country the cars drove through. IXO decided to print the blue 599 with the first country the Pan American 20,000 started in, Brazil, and the red 599 with the country the tour ended in, the US. That's why the red Pan American has the Statue of Liberty on the hood. So here's a close-up of the front profile of this 143 scale Pan American 599, and you can see that there's a lot of detail here, despite the small size. I mean, first of all, we've got the Ferrari badge in the middle, we've got the Shell V-Power logo on the left, and the US flag on the right. The headlights look pretty good for this scale, because you can see that we have the bulb, which is painted in silver, and on top of it, we have the indicator painted in orange. There are no pegs, so that's nice. But what's really impressive about this 143 scale IXO is the detail level regarding the front grills. If you look at the one in the center, the grill is actually photo-etched, and so is the Ferrari prancing horse in the middle. Every single one of these is made out of this chrome-like material. It looks great. But it's not just that. The grills on either side are also perforated. I mean, look at that. That just looks absolutely amazing. You cannot expect that kind of detail for a $10 143 scale model, but here we are. Really cool. Now, of course, with this being a 143 scale model, you can't open the hood. However, the engine is basically a 6-liter V12, or 5.99 liters, hence the name. Naturally aspirated, generating 612 horsepower with a top speed of over 330 km per hour and 0 to 100 km per hour acceleration in 3.5 seconds. You can see that IXO included these two hood scoops, and although they don't have any grill mesh like on the 118 Hot Wheels Elite, I think it's still nice that they didn't make these too shallow or anything. You can also see that we have some pretty nice windshield wiper detail, as well as some extra bit of detail on the dash. And of course the sun stripe says V-Power. And the mirrors have the Puma logos on them. So as we look at the side profile of the 599 Pan American, you can see this white stripe here running along the side of the vehicle, which lists the various companies that Ferrari partnered with to promote this expedition. Pirelli, Alcoa, Fiat, Puma, and so on. And below we have 4 different symbols representing different Native American cultures, and they are just as detailed on this tiny 143 as they are on the big 118 model. You also have these brake cooling ducts on the front and rear fenders. The wheels have pentagram rims, which is pretty iconic for the Ferrari 599 GTB, because the other 599 editions like the GTO, the XX, etc., they came with different rims. But if you take a closer look at these, you can see that even on this 143 scale model, we actually have red calipers, and the brake discs are also bearing a very nice perforation pattern on them. And you can see the Cavallino Rampante in the middle, surrounded by 5 lug nuts, so all the details are in place. Next to the wheel you can see the Ferrari badge, as well as an indicator right here. Perhaps the most unique exterior styling feature of the Ferrari 599 and all its variants are these flying buttresses on the C-pillars here that help channel the air over the trunk to create downforce. And even on this 143 scale model, you can see the gap is there, separating it from the car body. And here's a look at the rear profile of the Ferrari 599 GTB in 143 scale, and you can see that it has the same level of detail, at least regarding all the various decals and so on, as the 118, we have the ferrariworld.com URL on top of the Cavallino Rampante, the Italian flag on the left, the American flag on the right, Shell, Pirelli, and V-Power logos further below, and the taillights are here. And if you pay close attention, you can see that the prancing horse is actually a three-dimensional photo-etched piece. On a 1/43 scale, that is very impressive. Similarly, if you look at the trunk lid, you can see that the Ferrari branding here is also a three-dimensional photo-etched piece. It's just amazing. But what's even more amazing is that if you look further below, next to the chrome exhausts on either side, in the middle we have these reverse lights, and they are actual separate pieces, and they glow really nicely in this light. So they're not painted on or anything like that. That is very cool. If we move on further up, you will see that on the rear deck of this vehicle, there is an extra bit of space where you can put some luggage. Just like on the 118, we have luggage straps designed here by IXO. However, the buckles were all in black, so I decided to highlight them in silver just to make them stand out a little bit. On my 118 scale Hot Wheels Elite Blue Panamerican, this decal on the hood had a problem in the sense that, even though it was the dark blue version, they used the same black print for the names of the cities, so you couldn't really read them. But here on the red version, even though it's in a much smaller scale, you can clearly see the map. And you can see how the route starts in Belo Horizonte and goes all the way across South America, Central America, across the US, short while into Canada, and then back to New York City. So you can read the names of all these cities, and I think that's pretty cool. So here's a look at the interior of this 1/43 scale model, and just like on the real red Ferrari 599 Panamerican, everything is black. So that was actually one of the advantages of the dark blue Panamerican, because it had a beige interior. The red one has a completely black interior, and so things are naturally harder to see. However, you can still see some silver highlights that IXO has included into this interior. I mean, we've got the air vents that are visible, and down there we have the center console and the 6-speed F1 gearbox. Taking a look at the driver's side, unlike the passenger, it doesn't have the raised window, but that is pretty typical for IXO for the driver's side to have the windows down and the passengers to have them raised. And the 3-spoke steering wheel on this 1/43 scale model still bears the yellow prancing horse Ferrari logo, which is pretty cool. But not only that, it also has the start button on the left and the Manettino switch on the right. And if you look closely, we can even see the gauge cluster behind the steering wheel in the form of a sticker. I did add some extra bit of detail to the car in the form of painting the Ferrari logos that have been raised on the headrests, as well as the silver parts underneath it. It's pretty hard to do in 1/43, but yeah. The seats have a little bit more detail now. And here's a look at the bottom of the car. You can see that it says Ferrari 599 GTB, IXO, made in China 1/43. I did paint the exhaust system in silver, a little bit in the center. And we have these two exhaust pipes, mufflers. And the screws that are needed to take this car apart are also these triangle head screws, just like on the base. Altaia is another company that makes this exact same 599 Panamerican in 1/43 scale as well. So when buying, you gotta be careful not to buy the Altaia one by mistake, as it is sold for roughly the same price as the IXO I just reviewed, but the Altaia version has less details. For example, its brake discs have no red calipers on them, and the tail lights are missing the white circles in the middle. The front grills also don't have any perforation, and the headlights don't have the black trim. Other than that, it looks pretty identical to the IXO though. Alright guys, thanks again for checking out this review of the 1/43 Ferrari 599 GTB Panamerican 20,000 by IXO. I have reviewed both the predecessor of this car in 118, the Ferrari 550 Maranello by Burago, and the successor of this car, the Ferrari F12 Berlinetta in 124 by Burago. So please do check out those reviews as well. And I'll catch you in the next video. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.